Hello, everyone. I'm Giedrius from a company, NFQ Solutions. I am not a coach. I'm not a teacher. I'm a project manager who is doing these activities every day. And in 2006, actually, I had a moment where I had a question for myself. Am I doing things right? I mean, every day, just doing project management activities. And am I really doing those things right? And isn't it possible to do it better? So from that moment, I realized that it's always a possibility to do it better. And today, I'm not going to show you any theory how to do Agile or other practices, but I want to share my experience in a real company working for a Lithuanian market, how I added agility in every day of my life. So my presentation title is Communication, and actually I've heard that project managers who are really doing only project management activities spend like 90% of time doing communication. And from Latin word, communicare, it's meant to share. And you share everything in project. You share ideas, reports, agendas, and it all comes to a big pack of information. So I would like just to go through a couple of points who might be interested for you as well in your daily activities, covering work planning, communication among team members, several tools and techniques, and project this big information. So let's start with the work planning and scheduling. Companies, not even in Lithuania, but over the world, communicate with each other by contracts. And usually, contracts fall into fixed price and time and material ones. But back in 2004, or maybe some earlier, actually the first software I wrote and sold was in 1999, in those days, I have rarely seen the situation where you could actually say that this project was a successful and on budget and on time. And I was wondering, was it that absolutely possible? And actually, now looking retrospectively to those days, I come to this assumption that a project manager that was really doing some contract understood this project as a contract. And the project manager on the other side, let's say as a customer or product or some product owner, understood this project as his big project he's living in. And the real project manager asked, are we done with this project? He meant the contract. And it was never okay because the other side said that they are never done with this project. So what ended up, those big contracts never ended on time, on budget, and had many changes. And actually, this used to be a problem. So what I was looking into, usually we had some big project, for example, a web shop. We had that big product backlog, which came like initial requirements. And they also had something that obviously everyone understood as a must-do. And they had just uncertain items that, for example, to reserve any amount of budget needed for that project or some other reasons, but it was still uncertain. And there was a huge big contract who said that we will do everything. And what does that mean? It means you are, as a project manager, putting your signature on a contract which is uncertain, which has part of uncertainty. And you don't know what's behind that. So with your next contract, you can just ask yourself if you are signing the contract which is really uncertain, or you're signing a contract which you really understand. So in this case, I started splitting contracts into several contracts. If you can't, in your company, have several contracts, that's a problem. But, I mean, actually, you really can have few contracts in your company. And you can try, for example, as I did, you take the must-do part, and you say, OK, let's write the first contract just for the must-do. It's not an easy task. You need to convince the salespeople who are dealing with the customer, and etc. But still, as a project manager, you have a right to say that let's write, for example, few contracts or one contract for the part that is really needed, and everyone obviously understands that it's needed for the product. And this can be actually done as these fixed price projects. Also, you can have the big contract, which is time and material based for the whole project development, but that's the other story. And what else you can do for these little contracts, which are really, which you first of all understand what you are doing with them, you can add, as I call, agile spices. And these spices I actually tried and fall into two types. One is Scrum, which is actually proven to be a very good practice for developing new features, to having the product growing. And the other one is Kanban. And the Kanban proven to be very successful when you have this falling bugs and falling unpredicted tasks. And you can have separate even contracts for that. First of all, the fixed price Scrum. What I did is, if you have a very high-level product backlog, and you can have also a budget for that, something like absolute budget, $500,000, $2 million, $3 million, or whatever, but in a contract, you just put for your sprint or sprints what is a detailed must and what you really know that you need to deliver for a particular date and for a particular price. For emergency Kanban, I would call it emergency because, for example, in a hospital, there are doctors. They have planned operations, they have whatever. But every day in life, you have a disaster, and you never know who will come, who will walk through that door, but you still have some doctors ready to help people. And it's more or less the same as in a software development. If you are developing a big web shop, you never know if it's going to break the next day, or maybe it doesn't, but there can be other high-priority tasks, and you just can't say no to them. So Kanban proven as a good tool to manage all these emergencies. And if you look at your contract, you will usually have your plan, side scope, and schedule and price. And actually, the plan is more like legal part, how companies interact with each other. So you need to work with your legal department and to actually not really convince, but to explain how is your Scrum going to work and what extra things you need to put in that contract. For example, like feedback, some restrictions for customer, or whatever else. For example, scope can be defined not like the whole big project scope, but you can just say that it's a sprint backlog. It's a user stories that you know that is needed for upcoming months. And your schedule can be 1 or even 3 sprints, which comes us to a very fine contract with also the price, for example, in story points, which is a relative estimate and shows the complexity of the thing that you're getting. Plan, for example. So we are working in Lithuania. So first of all, these people decide how we do it, because it's a service, and you cannot get away with that. Then you are working, for example, for a company who has his organizational process assets. They decide how they do it. But then it's you, and it's your contract, and you decide how you do it. So altogether, a project manager like you can easily, not easily, but you can prepare a contract which is not only good for a customer, for your company, but also for yourself. And a few examples. This is pretty clear, but it's proven that many people who look just into the few information like this interpret in their own way and in a different way. So we used something like this, and it's the same front page, but it shows what parts and how much effort it is needed to implement, and the total value, for example, and what this means that a product owner can easily think and judge if this is needed or it is not needed in the implementation. Also, many contracts have a simple deadline like this. That's also not a very good way, but I would recommend of course, you need to have this deadline, but you can add your sprints, and in each sprint, you can add milestones which have, for example, the responsibility not only for you as a supplier, but also for a customer. For example, he needs to confirm the deliverables before they get deployed in the end of the sprint. And also the price. You can detail the same front page price by it depends on what you're selling, But showing the complexity gives product owner the tool to decide if to implement this at all. So in resume, with this planning, I wanted to emphasize that the project is not the project, and you need to be on the same page with the customer. And also, I would definitely not recommend the uncertain contracts, because this uncertainty is a hard-coded failure. And you, as a project manager, don't be shy to add your Agile spices to that contract. And this will help you to really understand what you're doing, and that contract becomes yours. Okay, the next one is about communication, not between companies, but inside the company or with the customers. So what I wanted to emphasize here is some maybe technical details you are already doing, like stand-up. A short thing that many people start doing stand-ups and they end up we're wasting time or something, but I can show you a short example. And the example was like this. A guy had to deliver like 5 forms, and he was working on the very first form. And during the stand-up, he said that he had a problem, and he started talking about this problem, and the other guy already noticed he was on the wrong way. And imagine that after a week, when he had to deliver all those 5 forms, he would have done it in the wrong way. So understanding this stand-up is not just a stand up and talking, it's about identifying potential problems in the very early stage. Then you can have a team chat window. This brings all teams like virtually co-located on one page and can be used, for example, in Skype. It really works even with the customer side. For example, if you're doing an integration between the systems, so you can just put everyone on the same chat and do some testing of that. A report always visible, it means that not a project manager sends, for example, the report on demand, but it's always up and running and you can reach it anytime. Just have a team lunch once a week. It's an informal team lunch, but it's really great. The team starts to know each other, to know not only what the technical skills they have, but it's also about social skills and hobbies and whatever, and it helps to know each other. And do not hunt who failed, analyze the root cause, because what fails is the whole team fails, and actually if the project fails, the project manager fails. But you don't have to hunt who failed. First of all, you need to find the root cause who is causing that fail. Maybe it's sometimes not a technical skill, it's just communication. And do a lessons learned every sprint end. Just print out not all the things you learned, but just essential things that you want your team to remember. Celebrate the major release. It gives evaluation to team. It's all the team members working all the day. They sometimes don't feel what they are doing and why they are spending their time for this, and this just notifies that they are important. And eliminate the others. If you're working with several companies, it's usually a practice that your team says that the others did not do something. There are no the others. If you're delivering an application which solves some life problem, so you are all in one place to build this solution, and there are no the others. Also, the stakeholders. You need to understand each stakeholder involvement so that you can file him important information. And one thing is good not to calculate the report because it takes time to prepare the reports, but just to have a shared document online and to maintain it always so that it's always up and running and everyone can reach it. And do not wait while someone insists you to send the report. You can also use today's software which automatically sends reports like once a week, and this really helps. Also, do not possess your team like the others that do software and the customer as the others that form requirements. Try to find the connection and communication channels between them, because only working together, you are going in the right direction. Okay, so there is this. Raise your hand who sends information by email today, and tasks and and all the important stuff. Okay, yeah, I can say that myself. I also do. It's inevitable because email goes back through ages ago and everyone is used to it. But what's about email? Email as a mode of communication, due to research in 2002, 2005, has proven as the most not rich and not effective form of communication versus phone conversation, video conversation, face-to-face. So obviously, this is one proof that something is not right here. What has proven for me that is right? You use email just to notify about some changes, to notify about some important things. It's just a message, but it does not send all the information regarding to it. It just sends the reference. Email is not a task. Email, if you put an email to a task, you send it to some people. Maybe you miss some people. Maybe that people does not get your message because it's considered a spam or whatever. Do not host the information in your inbox. People who use email as sending information don't really understand how it works, and email holds into some email server and only in your account. So nobody sees it, nobody can search it. Also, email is owned by someone. For example, if you related project information sent to some Gmail account, so you're basically sending it to Google or some other server. So just this is alert to you if you are sending this information to the right people and to the right emails. Also, emails gets lost because it travels through all the servers. And the question is, what could be do right in this place? I will show you other tools for except email for better communication. But shortly, I would like to go through this communication resume. And so build team spirit, trust, commitment, and understanding of what they're doing. They're not just plain workers. Stakeholders first. Be proactive instead of reactive. As I said, stakeholders must always know the status of your project, not asking you. And email use only for notifications. And let's speak about what to use instead of email in some places. If you would like to try, for example, Sprint, Scrum in your projects, you can easily do it with Google Docs. It's actually one Google Doc for one contract, and you can have a sheet which has a name backlog. You put all the user stories with evaluations. You can have another sheet which is sprint backlog, or many sheets like this for every sprint you plan. You can put from here the user stories you selected for the sprint. Here's dates by calendar. For example, it's a 2-week sprint here. And every day you have all the remaining work that has been done till the end of the sprint. So you have the total. If your team velocity is like 8 hours per day, so you can easily calculate how much effort you can have in the start to have 0 in the end of the sprint. So this comes to a burndown chart, which is also a Google Next sheet. And here you can take these values, and you can have a theoretical line, and you can have the real progress of your team. And that's an easy try with the Google Docs. For emergency Kanban, since those extreme problems come unexpected, and you don't want to disturb, for example, people who are working in the Scrum team, of course, emergency can be in a Scrum team, but those tasks can be easily managed with a tool like this, with a Kanban view, which also has a backlog where all the emergency falls into. Then there is a to-do, and this tool actually is very good to define this board and to have, for example, more IT-oriented. It's, for example, doing lane, and you can split it into a research and implementation phase. Okay, so we spoke about company communication, we spoke about within the team communication, and we all communicate about the information. So what is project information? Every contract brings a piece of project information if we are delivering a big web shop or something. So some contract brings some information. And where do you keep it? In your email? No. So I would like to emphasize that information, if you keep it in your email or even in docs or even somewhere on your company server, it's usually unavailable. It's stored in multiple places and inaccessible. For example, you don't have access to that. Unsearchable, it means if you need to know that search algorithm, how it works, you cannot search through all 200 documents or versions of the document. They have a different format. For example, a guy is working on a Mac OS, the other guy is on Linux, and the other guy is on Windows, and you can even open it. Then it's untraceable, only with versioning systems, but usually few customers use that. You don't know which version is this actually you're looking at. And it's very hard to share because you always will have to send it by email. And this could be done right, but actually it's very rare at the moment in Lithuania, but it's going to it. Every contract brings a piece of information, but you don't have to put this information inside the contract itself. You can add a reference to a system which is called Wiki. Who knows Wikipedia? Maybe all of you do. So it's a small Wikipedia inside your company, and this information is always changing. And for example, if you are working on the next contract, first of all, you go here, you change what you want to change, and you put a reference to the contract, to that information, so it stays here, not in your email or in some documents. It's not easy, it's not happening like globally, but many companies who really understand what they're doing, they are moving this way. And I would like to notify also several tools we used. And first of all is DocuWiki. This is perfect for storing some information like access to some places or just the general information about the project. Then it's MediaWiki. This one is more complex. You can store requirements in this one. This one is basically the Wikipedia style. And there's a Confluence. We also tried this. It has really a nice integration with Jira, and it has no wiki markup, because if you're using this, you will have to learn how to write it. And this one is more simple, and actually, but this one is not free, but it's really worth it. Okay, so project information, I wanted you to understand the level of details required. Many people say that this specification is bad, but is it enough for you to implement your deliverables? If the answer is yes, then it's okay. But if you're not able to implement your deliverable, so probably the level of details is too low. And you can structure this wiki by many ways. You get an empty page, basically, and you can have screens or features or whatever driven structure depending on the product you are creating. Writing forces thinking. If you call and say, hey, I want that feature, you basically just stream your information through your head, through the telephone, to the other telephone, and to other person's head. But if you write it, writing forces you to think. And when you are thinking while writing, maybe sometimes you realize that what you are writing is really not needed. So this wiki type software, first of all, it's hard to get into your company, but it really helps in the long run. If your project is just one contract and it's for 2 months to implement some service as a result, so basically, and you forget it, so you don't maybe need wiki. But if you're working on a project which is like a long term, like a few years, people change and other people come and they will want to know how the search algorithm is working. This will be a really fast answer to them. They could search it. And one important thing is that you host the information on customer server. It belongs to them. If you are putting this information on your server, so it's you in charge to secure this information and many other things. So in our practice, it has proven that the best way is to put it on a customer server because it's his information. And when you deliver changes, you deliver to his servers. So my conclusion about project information. is you need to save it. You don't just leave it in your laptop or your email inbox. You need to put it in a place where other stakeholders, team, or other project managers will come and access that information. So you need to use a wiki tools to store and access that information. And you need to change your way of communicating new changes, all the change requests, not just by email, but first of all, you go to wiki, check how it works, then you think how it should work, and then you change it there, which change is registered and is visible that it was, and then in your email you just write that you did this change in the wiki, and you can even put a link to that. So actually, coming back to this communication, once again, I wanted just generally to say that it's not communication about sending a message. It's about sending a message and being sure that the other person or persons get this message and understood what you meant for and what they have to do, and they will give you feedback. So communication in one thing is a very easy activity for project managers, but on the other way, effective and good communication, which brings effective results and deliverables and minimizes communication like email stuff, and it really drives you to success. So that's it. I wanted just to share my experience and would like to hear some questions if you have.